Everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Wednesday. It's August 28th. It is 2024. We have an 8-game MLB slate to talk about here on today's podcast, joined today by K. Murray himself. Yeah, that's Kyle Murray. Kyle, what's happening, my friend?
Yeah, not much. Doing good. Ready to talk some baseball with you. We got NFL season right around the corner, so it's a great time of year. It's probably my favorite time of year from a sports perspective. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I love this time of the year. World Series time right around the corner. Football gets started. NASCAR playoffs. Just a fun time. And like basketball will be ramping up here in no time. So team no sleep. But yeah, I mean, fun time of the year for sports. I mean, I've really gotten into volleyball a lot recently. And I mean, this is going to be college volleyball is going on right now. So just fantastic. I don't even want to hear it, chat. Like YouTube, what's up, YouTube? I don't want to hear it about the Texas game. I am so incredibly tilted about that game. I mean, listen, you can't do anything about that. Like, there was nobody projecting weather for that game anywhere, and the fact that like a storm just randomly popped up over the baseball field and didn't stop raining. I mean, there's just nothing you can do about that. So I mean, I'm tilted. I have some really, really good Toronto, Boston, San Diego teams. And I mean, I played a lot of Tovar too, and it's just not going to work out. So, yeah, we move on. We hope we make money, but we just move on. So let's talk some baseball. We got 8 games here on Wednesday, which is a really nice Wednesday slate, which also means that we probably have a really small Thursday slate. I haven't looked yet, but we get started here. Toronto at Boston, 9 total. Boston a 144 favorite. We got Bayo against Bassett. Any interest here in Bassett?
Yeah, I mean Bassett has been a guy who's been going fairly deep into games pretty consistently, and he's usually in my head one of the more he's more of a safe option rather than a super high upside guy. When you look at some of his rates this year, he's been much better against right-handed hitters, and Boston can definitely roll out some left-handed heavy lineups at times. So this could definitely change a little bit depending on the final lineup that we get. Maybe if they are a little bit more right-handed heavy, that'd be more intriguing there for Bassett, who has a 24% strikeout rate against righties compared to 20% against lefties. So I think right now he's going to be one of the safer options, but I don't know if he's necessarily a top choice for me here in this one. But definitely going to be a guy who I'm looking at this Boston lineup closer to lock.
Yeah, I mean, Devers got the day off on Tuesday. He should be back in the lineup. Bassett's biggest issue is lefties, and I mean, they just have so many lefty bats they can get in this lineup. So I think it's going to be a bad matchup for Bassett, especially when the lineup comes out and there's probably 7 lefties. So, I mean, if Bassett gets righties, sure, like, okay, I can get behind playing Bassett against a right-handed heavy team. I can't get behind Bassett against all these lefties. Duran, Cassis, Abreu, Devers potentially back, Hamilton in the lineup. Like some potential strikeouts with Cassis back in the lineup, with O'Neill back in the lineup, but a lot of lefties. Probably not getting to Bassett today overall. And I could definitely tell you I'm not getting to Bayo. I think Bayo has talent, and I do think he is a much better pitcher against right-handed bats, but I mean, he's too inconsistent. His command is too all over the place. We really have seen like 1, maybe 2 upside games from him over the last like 2 months. So I think Bayo is a pass.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Again, I think it's unless we see some sort of lineup that is super right-handed heavy, where, like you mentioned, he's been pretty good against righties, and it's been a very severe split there for him. 26% strikeout rate, 115 ISO compared to against lefties, 17% K rate, and 212 ISO. So unless we get like a really right-handed heavy lineup, probably off of Bello, because again, to your point, like he also isn't going super deep into games. Like you mentioned,
Yep.
the lack of big stealing games. Like we've only seen him crack 95 pitches a few times over the last couple of months, so probably not a ton of ceiling there for Bayo to go deep into the game either.
All right, let's play some bats here, or let's talk about some bats. I mean, I'm going to play some bats. We'll start with the Toronto bats. I mean, Varsho has been hitting the ball recently pretty well. Hit a home run on Tuesday night. Wagner, I mean, he just keeps hitting. So I'd really love to see them move him up in the order. But Baylor is a guy I definitely prefer lefties. But I mean, the 2 righties you typically play in this lineup are Vlad and Springer. You can play those guys against any pitcher. So Toronto, I think they're very stackable here, Kyle.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, it all starts with Vladdy here, who has really turned into, he kind of got to a slow start this year, but obviously the season that he's turning out lately has been, amongst kind of what everyone was expecting here for him, and he's been hitting righties very well. 225 ISO, 400 WOBA on the year, not striking out much at all as well. So yeah, I think Vlad is kind of where it starts. Springer also looks okay at the top of the order, and then you mentioned a couple of the cheaper options there with Varsho and Wagner as well. Wagner's been a guy who, not necessarily showing a ton of power, but he's getting on base a ton. 423 WOBA and about 30 plate appearances against right-handed pitching so far this season. So I think there's definitely a few guys that you can list here that make some sense.
Yeah, his first home run on Tuesday night, Wagner did. So, hey, maybe the power's coming, But yeah, I mean, for his price, like he consistently, I mean, he's 2,700 on DraftKings. So for like his price, the fact that he just keeps hitting is fine. I mean, it also obviously gets some upside here against Bayo, who really struggles with lefties. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep playing him for sure. I like the Red Sox. I think Bassett's a good pitcher. I think Bassett's a pitcher that, you could target against right-handed bats. But I mean, there's too many lefties in this lineup, and for the second straight day, I'm going right back to the bats in this game. I think this is going to be a nice, high potential run scoring game.
Yeah, I agree. And then in terms of some lefties for the Red Sox, I think there's a plethora of options there. So you can kind of pick your litter there. A lot of guys who've been showing power this year as well. So yeah, I think there's again tons of options in this game, and the total looks pretty solid as well from a potential run scoring environment. 9 over under in this one. So yeah, I think you can definitely pick your points. I think I do prefer the Red Sox side in terms of an upside stack, but yeah, both sides look pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I prefer the Red Sox side too, just because like Bassett has been so, and like even recently he's been really bad. 250 ISO against lefties recently. Like this lefty, like these lefties can put it on quick, and they have a lot of upside. So I'm hoping Devers was just kind of a day off thing. I mean, everything I read was he's just kind of sore, so I feel like that's just a give the hitter a day off type of situation. Atlanta at Minnesota is where we go next. 7.5 total. Braves a 142 favorite. Festa and Sale, two pitchers that I love to play in DFS. Two pitchers I love to bet. So let's talk about these guys. Chris Sale, captain consistent this season, just pitching phenomenal. I think he's 9 strikeouts away from like 200 strikeouts after all the injuries he's been through. That's just fantastic to see. What are your thoughts here on Sale against Minnesota?
Yeah, it's been good to see Sale kind of return to that sort of form that we saw a few years back for him before he dealt with some injury stuff. So it's been good to see for him. Last start was the last time, the only time in the last 4 starts where he didn't have double-digit strikeouts. So the strikeout upside is clearly there. 36% strikeout rate against lefties, 32 against righties. So even though this Minnesota team has some bats in the projected lineup that aren't super high strikeout rate guys, Sale kind of produces the strikeout upside on his own against any hitter there. So yeah, I think the price is what, 11K on DraftKings there for Sale. It's a big number, but obviously he's more than capable of paying that off. So I think he's going to be a strong option here.
Yeah, I mean, even Schwallenbach, yesterday, it was a tough matchup for him. He threw 106 pitches, only went 4 2/3. He had 8 strikeouts. He didn't allow a run. I mean, he got the strikeouts against a really tough lineup, and like Sale, 33% Ks pretty much all season. I mean, they're going to be able to get some of these lefties out of there, but they're going to have the lefties in there. He's been dominating both sides of the plate all season, so he's one of the few pitchers I feel like you could pay 11K for and feel pretty good about it, because he just has that like raw point ceiling. I prefer spending down at pitcher almost all the time, but Sale is one of those guys. Like he's that type of guy that you play when he's on the hill, you take shots on him. Festa on the other side, I mean, this young guy, I have interest in him, and I definitely have interest in him at 6,800 here. Pitch count is the concern, but he has good strikeout stuff. There are plenty of strikeouts in this Atlanta lineup. It's not as tough as it usually is because of all the injuries. So I think I'm willing to like play Festa for 80 pitches and try to get that like 5 to 8 strikeout game here against Atlanta and hope that maybe he only gives up a run or two and I can get 20-ish from him at 6,800.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, he's definitely a kind of risk reward type play, but that's kind of what you're expecting there with the salary below 7K on DraftKings. So yeah, with Festa being a guy who has a 28% strikeout rate, about 160 plate appearances this year, but very high power numbers as well. He doesn't do a very good job of keeping the ball on the ground and does give up some hard contact. So there's some question marks there with the power prevention, but again, in terms of the upside, is definitely there with strikeout rates. And if you are rostering a guy who's this cheap, you can definitely still make up some ground if he does give up a few runs with 5, 6, 7 strikeouts, which he's done multiple times so far this season already. So yeah, I think he's definitely in play as a value option.
All right. So bats, anything on the Atlanta side that you like here against Festa?
I mean, if you did want to pick off some potential home run pieces here, I think that's fine. I don't know if especially if you have interest in Festa as a value option, it's probably gonna be more difficult to be stacking them if you're doing several lineups. But there are guys who I think could potentially get after him. Obviously, Ozuna is going to be the guy who sticks out when you're looking at for example, plate IQ, when you're looking at the power numbers, 302 ISO number there for Festa. So he's obviously going to be the guy that sticks out. Olson's kind of been not the Matt Olson that a lot of us have expected this year, but he's still, a more than a viable option any given night. There's a couple of guys I think you make a case for buying low on. Obviously, Michael Harris, who's missed a lot of the season with injury. He's obviously a guy who I think is always appealing from a power and a stolen base upside perspective. So those would be the three bats that stick out the most for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ozuna home run chasing with Ozuna is fine. Olson has been hitting the ball really well over the last few days. Maybe he can keep that going here against Festa. But yeah, I mean, home runs. I don't mind the speed like call of Harris, but I mean, why are we hitting Whit Merrifield leadoff right now? I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for me. I don't know what Atlanta's doing, but as far as Minnesota, like, I mean, you can make an argument for Jeffer, Santana, or Lewis because they are just so good against lefties. But I mean, it's Chris Sale, and he is pitching phenomenal this year. So I wouldn't go out of my way to pick on him. I mean, he's allowed one home run over his last 10 games. So just not a guy I want to stack against.
Yeah, I would agree. Pretty much a hard pass for me unless you're like doing something crazy and like a 150 build or something like that. And if it were, I think it'd be a very small stack. And the three names that you mentioned, Lewis, Santana, and Jeffers, who all have 275 ISO or higher against lefties this year, those would be the guys. But other than that, not going crazy there.
San Diego at St. Louis, 8.5 total. Basically a pick'em game. San Diego a slight favorite, -118. Musgrove against Palante. Any interest here in Joe Musgrove?
I guess I wouldn't say I'm overly enthused with Musgrove. I think he's fine, but I just don't, necessarily love the strikeout upside here for him. And he hasn't really been going deep into games as well, so it's kind of, mitigated there. He doesn't have a ton of, efficiency from a strikeout perspective, but also not going super deep into games. So it's kind of, canceling each other out there from a stealing perspective. But 8,800 is the price on DraftKings, so it's not like he's super expensive, but I don't think he's much of a value here either. So I just don't love the matchup. There's a lot of guys in the St. Louis lineup who can get on base and not strike out a lot. So probably stay away from Musgrove here.
Yeah, I mean, he has been just going out and throwing and like pounding the strike zone recently. And he has this cutter that he uses against lefties. And I mean, it's his swinging strike rate over the last like 30 days has jumped so much against lefties. It's almost 21%. He's got 0 times against lefties recently. It's very small sample size. It's only 3 games. But I mean, coming back from the IL and having some good results and some positive results for a guy that really kind of was struggling. Maybe he was just hurt, but the pitch count is my biggest thing. Maybe had he not been dominating the Mets and and like the Padres up by the Mets, maybe they let him come back out in that game. I have some slight interest in this spot just because, I mean, we've seen some really good positive things from Musgrove in his 3 starts since he's come back, but the price is the thing, and everyone that listens to the podcast knows I do a first look at pricing when we come on. I had originally wrote down Musgrove, but the price might actually scare me off a little bit here. Other side, Palante. Any interest here in Palante against the Padres? I think we lost Kyle's mic again.
Sorry, sorry about that. I accidentally muted
Oh, it's
myself there.
okay. I mean, hey, listen, you just had to take after our good friend Chief. That's fine.
Yeah, little rust that I need to shake off here, but yeah, what I was saying was no real interest in Palante. Tough spot for him here against the Padres, and not a high strikeout guy, sub 18% strikeout right there for him. So it's gonna be a pass for me there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a BABIP guy. He is such a big ground ball pitcher that, like, if he can have a good BABIP game, he's not a guy that's going to go out and get blown up. Like, he's not a guy that gets barreled. He doesn't give up a lot of home runs. I don't think he's allowed multiple home runs in any outing this year at all. So, like, he's just not a guy you necessarily want to play because his ceiling is so capped. Like, it's such a random ceiling because, like, again, he really needs really good BABIP gains to get there. And I mean, I don't want to count on him going out and throwing 50% sinkers at 95 miles an hour and hoping that he just doesn't get blown up. But I'm not going to play him, but I'm also not going to play the Padres today. They were one of my favorite stacks against Mikolas on Tuesday, but I think this is a terrible spot for them.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty similar to what we were kind of saying on the other side, where it's just kind of a matchup that isn't all that sexy either way, and I think it's kind of going to be just my take on this game in general. I think both pitchers are not. I don't necessarily say good for Palante, but I think they're fine enough to get the job done, but not necessarily be an interesting fantasy appeal, but also not guys that I'm dying to stack against. So not a ton of interest there. Obviously, there's a couple guys who've been really hot, like Jackson Merrill for the Padres, but probably not going crazy with stacking here.
No, I mean, Merrill is a guy that I love to play. I bet his over total bases today, and I mean, just keep doing it. I mean, it's just he's just doing so well that it's really hard not to have interest in him. But I mean, I necessarily hate this spot. I hate playing hitters against this guy. I mean, he'll give up a rogue home run from time to time, but I can't do it, man. Any interest in St. Louis on the other side here against Musgrove?
No, again, I think it's pretty similar. Like, I just think it's a spot where, I think Musgrove is respectable enough pitcher to get the job done, but while also not being a overly, sexy option from a fantasy perspective. He does give up more power than Palante does, and he gives up more power to righties and lefties. But again, there's not a ton of, super appealing righties in this lineup, especially with Goldschmidt, struggling so much this year. So, it's probably just going to be a stay away for this game for me, in all honesty.
Yeah, I think this is a good stay away game. I mean, the weather is great as far as like hitting conditions. We talked a lot about it yesterday as well. Like the hitting conditions really good. But I mean, there's 12 runs in that game here on Tuesday night right now. So again, the hitting conditions are going to be good. The pitching conditions scare me off of this one. So Texas at Chicago White Sox. I assume they leave this game on the slate because it's a suspended game instead of like a full-on doubleheader. But we'll see how the sites kind of react. We'll talk about it anyway. I mean, it looks like it's going to be Jack Leiter against Chris Flexen. I don't know if that really changes much. So we'll kind of have to see how it plays out. They left the total up in this game. It's 9. Rangers a 185 favorite. So, yeah, I mean, any interest here in Jack Leiter?
Yeah, it's a good matchup, right, against a Chicago team that doesn't really have a ton of power. They're not like a super high strikeout team. They have a few guys in the lineup that strike out at a pretty good clip. And then again, when you look at splits there, righty versus lefty, they are a more strikeout prone team against righties. So I think Leiter you could make a case for him here, but also he hasn't really been the prospect that people have sort of really expected to see from him. But 7-1, the price is definitely low enough to make a case from a value perspective, but I'm not necessarily fully sold on the upside, and he's just looked pretty bad this year.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen him since May. I mean, he has good stuff. We know he has a big fastball. We know he has a big curveball, good slider. I mean, you dream of getting recalled. Let's just say that you dream of getting recalled against a team like this team. I mean, you're so excited that, hey, I'm getting called back up here, and it's the White Sox. I mean, this is a big prospect. This guy is top 5 in this organization. He has good stuff from everything that we've seen. I like him a lot today. I mean, I think that this is a spot you can take shots on him. 7,100, it's a good price tag. And again, I mean, like he's shown ability to strike people out. He didn't have the best stretch the first time, but we can't judge that. I mean, Jackson Holiday didn't have the best stretch either, and he absolutely crushes. So I like leader lighter here. Leader, right? His dad was a pitcher, right?
Yeah, pretty sure it's later. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who his dad was. It's Al, right? Al leader. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think that
I
sounds
think
right.
I'm right. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's his son. Hey, you know who we're not playing? We're not playing Chris Flexen, right?
Absolutely not. That's a hard pass.
Al Leiter. Okay. Right. Like he was a Major League Baseball player, right? I'm not crazy. I don't think I'm crazy.
Yeah, he was a pitcher. He has that's his dad.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, Chris Flexen stinks. Let's play some Texas bats. The only thing that concerns me here, Kyle, is like one, weather, because there is some potential rain again, and two, like they are going to play a full game, so like it will be like a doubleheader. So the lineup could potentially be watered down a little bit, but I mean, it's Chris Flexen. I'll play just about anybody against this guy.
Yeah, 100%. Flexen has been, much worse against lefties. I mean, he hasn't been good against righties either, but much worse against lefties. So I'll be curious to see what they roll out lineup wise. Obviously, you're going to have guys like Seager and Lowe in there who will be, intriguing options. Jonah Heim could be a catcher option that I think will make a lot of sense. Hopefully we don't see Robbie Grossman in the middle of the lineup again, but I don't think we'll see that there with the righty back on the mound. And then obviously you have the righties as well. Adolis Garcia, Josh Young, who we haven't seen a ton of this year, who is dealing with the injury. And he's I think he's going to be back to normal pretty soon here. And again, I think he was actually a big piece as to why the Rangers maybe struggled a little bit in the middle of the season. And I think that maybe we could see the Rangers make a little bit of a run pretty shortly. But those are definitely the guys that would stand out the most to me. And then Langford, who's been better against lefties, obviously, but when he gets on base, he does have that stolen base upside as well. So I think he's probably fifth or sixth in terms of guys who you are looking to stack here. But definitely lots of options for the Rangers.
Any interest in the White Sox here?
I think it's going to come down to ownership on Leiter. Again, I don't love to stack the White Sox. There's not a ton of appeal, but if he's one of these guys who he does have the big name, he came out of college as a big prospect, and like you mentioned, we haven't really seen him, and he has looked good, and I guess maybe you can potentially chalk up some of the early struggles to a potential injury or whatever is holding him back as an option there. But if he's gonna be popular, again, value. Anytime you see a really cheap value pitcher become the chalk, I'm always going to at least take a look at stacking against him. But for the most part, I would say no, unless there's some game theory there.
Yeah, and like his Sierra and XFIP were awful when he was up. Like it wasn't like he was getting a little unlucky. Like his BABIP was like 400, but I mean he just wasn't pitching great. He's been excellent in AAA this year. I mean he has almost a 13 K per nine. He has some walk issues and some home run issues, but it's the White Sox. I mean I don't know. Like I get the leverage stack, but I think that's the only way you could play the White Sox. Just full on leverage stacks. I mean, they're so bad at baseball.
Agreed.
And like they have some names in their like system. Like, what are we doing? Like, why is Chris Flexen pitching in this game? I mean, like at least like call some of these guys up and get them some major league experience. I don't know. Drives me crazy. Moving on. I will say I did read something today that made me kind of excited, Kyle, and that is Jacob deGrom is very close to being back. So anyone that doesn't know, huge Jacob deGrom fan, absolutely dominated him in high school. So what's up, Jake? San Francisco, he was I still have a high school record for strikeouts in a game, and he was on the team that I did it against. So suck it. San Francisco at Milwaukee, a total. Milwaukee a 158 favorite. Harrison and Peralta, two solid pitchers here. Any interest here in Kyle Harrison?
Yeah, Harrison's been good this year. He's been kind of a surprise, a pleasant surprise for a lot of these Giants fans. He's kind of been a guy who's been dominant against lefties and pretty solid against righties as well, which is always nice as a left-handed pitcher. I guess I don't know if I have a ton of interest from a DFS perspective, just because of price and kind of where guys are around him. But 8-2 isn't the worst price tag over on DraftKings there. Also, fairly difficult matchup against the Brewers. Again, he's kind of going from a comfortable Oracle Park into Milwaukee, which is a pretty negative shift for him there from a hitting environment perspective. And then you have a handful of guys who hit lefties really well. So I'm probably not going crazy using Kyle Harrison. And if anything, I might have some interest in using some of these righties against him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily hate the idea of Kyle Harrison here, but I think there's better options today. Because I mean, the lineup worries me. I do like left-handed pitchers against this team more than I like right-handed pitchers against this team, and Harrison's strikeout stuff has been excellent recently. He's also had some pretty good matchups to take advantage of, but I probably don't get to him today. I do like Peralta a little bit, but even Peralta is someone that he just doesn't seem right recently. Granted, he's another guy that's had kind of a rough stretch here as far as opponents, like Braves, Dodgers, Guardians, Cardinals. That's not a stretch you want to see. But I mean, there's just been no swinging strikes. His barrel rate is through the roof. And I mean, he's been getting a little lucky, and he's been struggling with this. So, slight interest because I know the ceiling is there, but overall, probably not playing a lot.
Yeah, I do like Peralta a little bit here, but I mean, I definitely share some of your concerns with some of the recent form stuff. He's had some games. I think the big thing is, tough matchups, and especially when you're in a stretch with 4, 5, 6 tough matchups in a row. But also, there were some games where we had low strikeout rates, but solid CSW numbers there. So, nothing crazy to maybe assume that he got unlucky or anything like that. But I think it's enough to maybe make me feel a bit better about maybe concerns of him, not feeling right, or maybe being in bad form or dealing with some sort of injury. But in terms of the matchup, it's a pretty good one in terms of strikeout perspective. You got 7 guys in the lineup with a 24% strikeout rate or higher against righties. Now I've had a lot of bad luck chasing some Peralta overs on K props lately, so hopefully I can make some of that money back here. But yeah, I do think there's a decent strikeout matchup here for Peralta.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco bats, one of the reasons that, I have some interest here in Peralta is you can't really, I don't get excited about playing these guys. I mean, Ramos, Fitzgerald, and Conforto, Chapman, those are the 4 guys you would, talk about or, potentially play. What are your thoughts here on the Giants?
Yeah, I probably won't get to any of the bats here, again, unless Peralta ends up being super chalky, which I don't think he will be. I don't think I'll have a ton of interest in the bats for the Giants.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. Milwaukee, any interest here in the Milwaukee bats against Harrison?
Yeah, I do have some interest. I think you mentioned Harrison being a good strikeout pitcher, but he's also kind of dealt with some hard contact issues as well. He's number 1 on the slate in terms of hard contact and barrel rates outside of Jack Leiter, who obviously has a very small sample size, but Harrison still has a higher hard hit rate than Leiter there. So I do think there's some concerns there, but he does do a fairly good job at keeping the ball on the ground. But there are a couple guys in the lineup that I think you can make a case for as a mini stack and a little bit of a value stack. You have Rhys Hoskins, Joey Ortiz, Jake Bauers hits lefties pretty well, and then William Contreras there in the middle of the lineup. So probably not going overboard with it here. This is a game with the lowest total on the slate, so I do think it's going to be a pretty contrarian stack, and again, probably not even fully stacking it, but I think there's a nice little value and contrarian mini stack there for the Brewers.
All right, let's go to Coors. Miami at Colorado. A lot of runs in this series so far, and I don't think it's going to necessarily stop today. We got 11 total. The Rockies a 126 favorite. Meyer against Freeland. Any interest here in Max Meyer?
No, I mean, I don't mind, sometimes taking some stands on and using some guys in Coors if I'm, really high on them, or if it's a spot where I think the public's going to be off on it, but just because I just think the Rockies are, pretty good matchup, obviously with all the strikeouts that they have in their lineup. But Meyer's not one of those guys that I, get one of those conviction feelings for. So probably pass there.
Yeah, I mean, just not something I want to do. He has just been getting absolutely hammered. His home runs, he gives up a lot of them, and I don't think you necessarily want to do that against anybody in cores. Like 60% hard hits this season, 305 ISO to lefties, 260 to righties. Like this is a guy you love to stack against because the bats just have incredible upside. And they got Munoz out of the game super early on Tuesday too. So bullpen going to be taxed. I mean, they're playing right now, so we can't really talk about it in depth. But I mean, the bullpen is going to be used a lot on Tuesday. So other side of this game, Kyle Freeland. Listen, Freeland against Miami in Miami, maybe. But Kyle Freeland against Miami in cores, I think I'll pass.
Yeah, I think, when looking into, the matchup here, like a lot of these guys, the matchup numbers look pretty good for Freeland just because there's a lot of small sample stuff here on the Miami side against left-handed pitchers this year. There's a couple guys who have hit him really well, a couple guys who have, not struck out a lot, but for the most part, I think it's a pretty neutral matchup. And again, I just think to your point where it's Freeland and it's in cores, so it's probably pretty easy to just pass there.
Yep. I mean, just not something I want to touch. Bats, though. I mean, Berger, obviously someone that is up towards the top of the list today. Bride is someone I really like as well. I assume Derek Hill will be in the lineup today against the lefty, so obviously interested in him. But, I mean, I'm just going to keep playing my boy Norby. I mean, they're not going to make him over 4K. He just keeps hitting. I think he's at like a 9-game hit streak or whatever it is now. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously one of my favorite value plays on the slate.
Yeah, he's looked really good. And like you mentioned, they're just kind of resisting raising his price here. 294 ISO against lefties, 378 WOBA. Small sample, again, only 17 plate appearances, but it's better than seeing him, not do well in that small sample. And then Jake Berger, who I think is going to be probably a public option there, a pretty favorite option there. Just from when you look at the matchup, obviously being in cores, and then what he's been doing with the 252 ISO against lefties, and I'm sure Grant Niefer is going to have him for a home run call tomorrow morning. So we'll see if that comes through. But yeah, I think there's a couple of other options as well with Bride, maybe even Lopez there if he's going to be in the middle of the lineup as guys who are relatively cheap for being a core stack.
Yeah, and then I mean the Rockies. Obviously, some interest in the Rockies here against Meyer again. I think they're my top stack in the slate, and I mean it's not really a hot take because it's cores, but I mean I can't tell you how many times I've really like stacked Colorado and called them my top stack this year. But I mean I'm not missing an opportunity of Meyer in cores against this team.
Yeah, I do think there's like not a ton of other obvious stacks, so I think it is, I think it's an easy label to make for the Rockies as the top stack here, and there's plenty of options when you look at obviously the splits for Meyer. He's been pretty similar to both sides. He's walking lefties more, so that might actually be a fairly interesting play to maybe a little bit more contrarian. Just take the edge to say, okay, people are probably going to look for lefties just because they typically do. Look for the opposite-handedness hitters, but he walks lefties more, and he actually produces more grounders to lefties. So I'm actually going to prefer the righties in this matchup. Toglia is probably going to be my favorite. Like Tovar quite a bit as well. But, I honestly don't think that there's many guys that you are going to not make a case for putting in lineups here from the Rockies.
All right, moving on. We have 2 more games left. Mets at Arizona taking on the Diamondbacks. 8.5 total in this game. The Diamondbacks a slight 120 favorite. We got Rodriguez against Severino. Any interest here in Luis Severino?
Severino's been, honestly better than I expected this year, coming off of a couple of pretty severe injuries. And I think from a strikeout perspective, hasn't been great, but he's had some decent performances as of late. To maybe you can make a case for, maybe we're going to see a little bit more strikeout upside there. The price 7.3, I think, is an interesting price tag. We've already talked about a couple guys in that price range that we're maybe considering. And I think Severino might be, maybe the less of the strikeout upside guys, but I think more of a safe option. When you look at this matchup, there's just not a lot of hitters that present a ton of power. You have Grichuk, who leads the team with a 225 ISO. Suarez is the only other guy in the lineup with an ISO above 200 against right-handed pitching, but just not a lot of strikeouts in the lineup. So I think it is going to be a very difficult strikeout matchup for Severino, but I do think he is a pretty safe option. I don't think he'll get lit up or anything like that. So I think on a a lineup where you're maybe looking for a safer value option, I think Severino could definitely fit that bill.
Yeah, I mean, he has definitely shown a little bit more strikeout upside recently, but it was Seattle and Miami. He pitched well against San Diego last time out, showing some good positive signs. I think I'd want to see the lineup. Like, there is a lineup that Arizona runs out against right-handed pitching that has like a 19% K rate against right-handed pitching. So I think I want to see the lineup before I get excited about or not excited. And like, I like Leiter and Festa in this range, so I don't necessarily feel like I have to play Severino if I don't like the lineup. So, other side of this game, Rodriguez. I mean, hey, 100 pitches last time out. Showed a little bit of upside in his last 2 starts. I don't know what to do against the Mets, though. This is a pretty low strikeout team, and I don't know. Some of the advanced stats for Rodriguez not looking fantastic.
Yeah, I agreed. It was good to see him, reach 100 pitches fairly quickly. Honestly, he was out for quite a while, and even last year he was, missing a lot of time. So it was, I guess a positive to see him reach 100 pitches in his third start there back. But 27% CSW rate in that one, 30% CSW in the matchup before that. But the hard hits have been there. 40% in his first start, 47% last start. So he's definitely been experiencing some hard hits and not doing a great job of keeping the ball on the ground, which is something that could obviously come back to bite him here. And has had some pretty severe splits there against righties. So I think the righties could potentially give him some trouble. So I'll probably stay away from Rodriguez, and I'm probably looking to stack against him.
All right, let's talk about these bats. What do you like here for the Mets?
Yeah, I like the top 4. I think are pretty interesting. Again, like we could potentially see some shakeups in the order of the lineup, but you got Lindor, Vientos, Alonso, JD Martinez. These guys are all bats that I like quite a bit, and I think Brandon Nimmo is an interesting, potentially contrarian option. I don't know if he'll get a ton of love, just being lefty on lefty, but he's been hitting lefties really well. 182 ISO, 348 WOBA, another guy with some stolen base upside. And again, I don't mind throwing in a couple guys like this in teams that I'm full stacking, because again, if you're full stacking a team, you're kind of hoping that they get that pitcher out pretty early anyway, so you can kind of take advantage of some lower owned guys, especially lefty on lefty options. And Nimmo definitely fits that mold. So Lindor, Vientos, Alonso, Martinez, and Nimmo would probably be the stack that I'm looking to roll out there for the Mets.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. Arizona side, I mean, Severino's been pitching good, but he also has these games where he just kind of implodes, and you can have good stacks against him. So I think it'd be a stack or fade situation for me, more than anything else here, if I was going to take shots on Arizona.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a couple names that you can piece together for a solid stack. Obviously, you have Corbin Carroll, who has not lived up to the expectations that he kind of set last year, but that was going to be difficult to do, even if he was having another really strong year this year. But you have Suarez, Grichuk, Josh Bell, Jake McCarthy. All of these guys, along with Carroll, have 150 ISOs or higher against lefty or against right-handed pitching so far this season, and they don't strike out. So you're expecting to see the ball in play quite a bit here for this Diamondbacks team. So maybe you can throw a stack together here and hope that variance works, so you get some power here from these bats.
All right, we finish it out. Baltimore at LA taking on the Dodgers. 8.5 total here. Kind of a pick'em game. We got Burns and Bueller. Crazy how the times have changed. I mean, Corbin Burns, he's been struggling. I really don't think he's right. I mean, you look at some of his recent starts and you're like, man, this guy's just getting shelled.
Yeah.
Any interest here in Burns against the Dodgers?
No, can't do it. I mean, for a while, I was sort of just convincing myself that it was, him pitching to contact more and, keeping the ball on the ground and trying to induce soft contact. And that's why we saw the strikeout rates fall. And he's still been pretty good against righties, but the power against lefties, especially recently, have been pretty concerning. This is not the matchup where you want to, mess around with somebody who maybe isn't 100% themselves right now.
Yeah, they got that guy Ohtani. He's pretty good at hitting baseballs, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think I want to play Burns either, especially in this matchup. I think my boy Kerry Carpenter's just hit a home run, by the way. Makes me super happy because I had his over total bases and I had his home run prop today. So, That never stinks. But yeah, Riley Green just hit one too, and I had his home run prop too. I mean, Johnny Cueto on the hill had to take some shots there. So I think he hit a home run. It looked like a home run. Walker Bueller. I mean, Bueller is not somebody I can't tell you the last time I even thought about playing this guy, and I definitely don't want to play him against Baltimore.
Yeah, again, like you mentioned, what a fall from grace, what a change of times there. This is 2 or 3 years ago. These were the two guys maybe at the
You
top
wouldn't
of.
even be like remotely thinking about playing bats against these two guys 2 years ago.
Yeah, two of the guys at the top of the NL, and guys who were often obviously Burns won it, so the Cy Young top two candidates here, and Walker Buehler has just not looked like himself. Obviously, he returned from injury and dealt with some stuff last year as well, and he's just been getting shelled. Right, 249 ISO allowed to opposing hitters, 17% strikeout rate. So yeah, I think you can make a case for stacking up this Orioles team that's been red hot as of late as well. So um, as odd as it seems, this is a game with 8.5 total. I think the over might look pretty good here.
Yeah, I like the over in this game as well. I like the bats. We started with a game that I like the game stack with Boston Toronto, and we're gonna finish on a game that I really like a game stack. I mean, I love the bats in this game. Baltimore is a top stack on this slate, and we know how ownership works in DFS baseball. I mean, we just don't get as much ownership on these late games as you should. So I think this is an excellent spot to load up on Baltimore bats.
Yep, I agree 100%. When you look at kind of Bueller, he struggled more against lefties. He has struggled against righties as well, so I wouldn't shy away from it. But again, he's giving up more hard contact, more balls in the air against lefties. So definitely prefer lefties. When you look at the hard contact splits, 57% against lefties, 40% against righties. So again, not shying away from righties, but do prefer lefties. Santander, Gunnar Henderson, those are going to be my two favorites. Colton Cowser at the top of the order. Those are probably my three favorites. Cedric Mullins, I like again as well. Again, another guy who has the power and speed combo. O'Hearn, I believe he homered today, so potentially he's a guy that maybe catching a little bit of fire there, or yesterday it was. And then Jackson Holliday, again, at the bottom of the order there. Like you mentioned, kind of struggled at the beginning when he got called up, and has sort of turned it around as of late. So hoping that he can kind of continue to hit that, swing the bat hot, and again, cheap price tag over there. So I think there's probably 4 or 5 lefties that you can really have a lot of confidence in stacking, and then a couple other options as well as contrarian pieces to round out the stack for the Orioles.
And then on the other side, obviously the Dodgers are a team you can stack. They're just really expensive. Otani is the price of a pitcher at 7K. Betts is 6,200. I mean, how do you not like Otani though? With as much Burns as Burns has struggled against like lefties. I mean, Otani, Freeman, Muncy, and then just try to hope you get some of these cheap bats in there. I mean, Baltimore is cheap, so like that's why I like the game stack. You can kind of play some of these expensive bats on the Dodgers, play some of the cheap bats on both sides, and then maybe get one extra Baltimore expensive bat. But yeah, I mean, I like the Dodgers side just as much as I like the Baltimore side here.
Yeah, I think I do like the Orioles a little bit more than the Dodgers, but again, I think both are pretty strong, especially depending on the lineup that the Dodgers roll out. I would like to see as kind of as many lefties as we can here. Tommy Edmonds going to be a guy that I think we're probably more likely to see, and then Muncy and Otani as the lefties to sort of round out the for sure left-handed hitters that we're going to see. But over the last 5 starts, Burns 203 ISO against lefties, 440 WOBA. And then obviously you have the big righties as well, Betts, Smith, Tasker, Hernandez. So obviously very stackable here for the Dodgers.
All right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we'll get out of here. DraftKings pricing and scoring, and we'll get started here. Under 6K to get 6 or more strikeouts. Who do you got?
Not a ton of options there at the 6K rate, but I guess I would have to go with Kyle Freeland at that the price tag there.
No, under 8K to get 6 strikeouts.
Oh, under 8K. Okay, I thought you said 6K for some reason.
No, 6 strikeouts. 6. I probably said 6Ks. Which makes
okay.
yeah. I threw you off.
Okay.
That's okay.
No, that's my bad. Then I'm gonna go with Bayo here. Again, I think there are some other options that I think could definitely be considered, but in terms of the guy with the highest strikeout upside and probably the best ability to do it consistently, I'll go with Bayo.
I'm going to go with Leiter against the White Sox. I mean, they're going to potentially play a doubleheader. So as long as the weather holds off, I think Leiter has some upside here. Over 8 strikeouts or over 8K. See, I did it to myself there. Over 8K to score under 15. Who's your bust today?
I'm going to go with Musgrove. He's just a guy who I'm not totally thinking he's going to go deep into the game, and not having a ton of strikeout upside, I think it makes it difficult for him to produce a ton of regular DraftKings production there. So I'll go with Musgrove.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I'm going to go Burns against Dodgers. I mean, I don't necessarily want to play Burns against anybody right now. I definitely don't want to play him against Dodgers. Over 4,000 to hit a home run, not in Coors. Who's going yard, not in Coors today?
Yeah, I'm going to go with my boy Pete Alonso. Obviously, he's a little bit of a cheat code pick there, but I really like the matchup for him. Rodriguez has been struggling against righties, and obviously Pete Alonso hits everybody well with power, but definitely lefties. So I'll go with Pete there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good home run potential plays. I think it's one of those days that I'll probably spread out a few units over some home run bets because, I mean, there's a ton of options. I think I'm going to kind of go under 5K a little bit here and say Max Muncy takes Corbin Burns' yard. So that's who I got for a home run today. Under 4,000 to get 2 hits. Who's a cheap bet that you like today?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tommy Edman, a guy that we mentioned, and a guy in that late game. Again, Burns has been struggling against lefties as of late, and Edman's a guy who is going to obviously be switch hitting. I think is going to benefit him for staying in the game later, and obviously having better matchups throughout the game. So I'll go with Tommy Edman.
Yeah, I mean, Will Wagner just keeps hitting. I mean, at this point, it's hard not to have some interest in Will Wagner. So give me Will Wagner. I will say, like, if we were allowed to play Coors, Norby would be my answer for under 4K to get 2 hits today. Stack to score 6 or more runs. Who's scoring some runs today?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Mets theme here. I'm liking the Mets a lot in this one, so I'm going to continue to back them here. They hit lefties really well. They have a few different options, and I'm sort of thinking that they might go a little under the radar there, especially if people do sort of maybe follow the line there with Baltimore and Dodgers stack being rather popular. So I'll go with the Mets.
Yeah, they just had bases loaded and 1 out, and they just got a sacrifice fly, but they are trying to break Tuesday's slate here. So we'll see how that kind of shapes up. I think there's a lot of good teams to target today. I said this team yesterday. I'm going to go back to the well. Give me my Boston Red Sox. And this isn't a homer pick. I think this is a phenomenal spot here against Bassett. He struggles with lefties. They have a ton of good lefties. So give me the Red Sox. Betting portion of the show. Any player props or pick'em plays that you like here?
Yeah, I think we already talked a little bit about the over in the Baltimore and Dodgers game at 8.5. So I like that one quite a bit. I also like the over in the Toronto and Boston game at 9 runs. And then I don't mind a little bit of a sprinkle on the Braves -1.5 at plus money, plus 120, I believe, on FanDuel. So those 3 plays I like all quite a bit.
Yeah, I like that. I typically do my 3-pick parlay right now, but my wife has my phone, so I can't do it. But the Dodgers and the Blue Jays overs were 2 that I was looking at. Here's the thing. I will tweet out my 3-pick parlay in the morning for the morning grind because I there's a lot on this slate, and I don't think I will have an issue putting together a 3-pick parlay that I like. So I'll tweet one out tomorrow. As far as Tuesdays, it became a 2-pick parlay because of the White Sox game, but we're rooting right now for Seattle. Seattle money line over the Tampa Rays is what we need to bring home the 2-pick parlay because the Padres won. So, Kyle, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I think we covered it all. I appreciate you having me on. It was fun talking some baseball.
Yeah, man. Football right around the corner. I know you're going to be busy with college and NFL, so I don't know how much we'll get to talk to you for the rest of the baseball season, but we'll definitely have you back for basketball because I know you love talking basketball. So hope you have a good one. Always appreciate you coming on. That's going to wrap it up here for Wednesday. We're back Thursday talking baseball. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you then.